All right. We're ready to begin. Welcome to the Level Up Leadership Podcast, where we discuss all things leadership and leveling up. This series is about people I admire. And first and foremost on the list, we are going to be interviewing Mr. Ralph Smithers Jr. Ralph is currently the Assistant Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Community Relations at Encova Insurance. He has over 9 years of experience in this role, leading and executing a robust DE&I strategy and managing all corporate philanthropic activity. He has formal business education in finance and insurance from The Ohio State University Fisher College of Business. His diverse background and perspective enable him to leverage data analysis and interpersonal skills to optimize outcomes and deliver value to various stakeholders. He has successfully formalized and automated the company's philanthropic and volunteer programs, facilitated DE&I training and education, and represented the company at various community events and media appearances. He is passionate about driving DE&I and community impact at Encova Insurance and beyond. He serves as an advisor and officer on several boards and initiatives related to these areas, including Leadership Columbus and WELD, Women for Economic and Leadership Development. He has been recognized with numerous awards for his work in diversity and community engagement, including, but not limited to, the Whitney M. Young Jr. Award for Lifelong Commitment to Service, and most recently, if I'm not mistaken, because he always is getting awards, the Ohio Foundation of Independent Colleges, or the OFIC, for excellence in diversity and inclusion. And as Les Brown would say, I have the plum-pleasing privilege and honor of presenting the one, the only, Ralph Smithers Jr.
Gosh, Cindy, that was very nice. I appreciate it. I'm really honored to be talking with you today. I'm always uncomfortable when people read the bio because I'm just trying to go out and do the best I can. And I think we have a professional obligation to document what it is we do. And I also appreciate you quoting Les Brown. I don't know if you know this, but Les Brown used to be on the radio here in Columbus, Ohio. This is where he built his career before he moved on to be a motivational speaker. And as a very, very young kid, I remember listening to him sometimes on the radio. So I'm really honored to be here with you. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. So glad to have you. All right, so we're just going to get right into the questions. So number one on the list is, what motivates you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Someone asked me that yesterday about what motivates me, and I guess I've had a chance to think about it a little bit. So I definitely am, I want things to be done well. I'm not a big fan of mediocrity, so I guess I'm motivated by excellence. I'm motivated by seeing things being done well, and doing whatever little part I can to help make it that way. The person that asked me this yesterday made me think of the quote, "If it is to be, it's up to me." So I guess I just try to take what a little space or whatever I can to try to make a difference so that it can be better than what we found it. So I guess that's what motivates me.
Wonderful. I love it. Love that. All right. And as I aforementioned, you have awards out of the wazoo. I know I only mentioned like a couple. You even get awards you don't even know you're getting.
Most of the time, that's the case. I don't think I'd let anyone give me an award if I knew they were going to do it. So
I see. Okay. So we have to trick you into giving you an award.
That's true, actually.
That's funny. Which awards were the hardest to attain, i.e., took the most work?
Yeah, well, so I never go into anything with the intent of trying to win an award. That is insane. I just go in just trying to do my very best, trying to lift other people up, and try to make an impact. And I'm usually kind of embarrassed. Like I said, the awards that I've been able to win, I would say almost in every case, I didn't know. They were surprised. And if I had known, I probably wouldn't have showed up, just because that's not what it's all about
Right.
for me. And one thing I will say, though, is that it's been my experience that when you do get recognized for certain things, you usually do have to go above and beyond. And it's kind of been my experience that you go above and beyond almost to a point where if you were just doing it for an award, it wouldn't be worth it.
Right.
So I'll give you an example, and this one wasn't in the bio because it happened a number of years ago. But I won the Chairs Award when I was on the board of the Red Cross several years ago.
Very nice.
And thank you. And I remember the year before I saw the person who won, that we were in a board meeting and the person was given this award. And I just remember consciously thinking, my God, I know how hard that guy works. I would never be up for something like that. I don't even know it would be worth it just knowing the amount of effort that he puts in. And I was in awe. I was just in awe that, this person had to walk across hot coals, to rise to that kind of level of recognition. And I thought, well, I don't know if that's for me. I don't know if I have that in me. And the next year, I wasn't thinking about that meeting at all. I'll tell you about what was hard about it here in a second, but they kept asking me, hey, are you going to be at the meeting? And I'm like, well, I'm at all the meetings, No big deal. I'll be there. But they kept asking me, are you going to be there? Are you going to be there? I said, oh, yeah, sure. I thought it was kind of unusual that they were asking me if I was going to be there, but I ended up getting that same award. And you asked the question about, how hard it is. So when I was on the Red Cross board, we had a pretty large board, but we would often be challenged to make quorum. And I didn't even think I would get on that board. I remember going through the interview process, and I thought, wow, that sounds like a great opportunity. They're surely not going to choose me. And I ended up getting on it, which I was very happy. And, my response to that was, well, I'm going to make sure I show up for all the meetings and contribute in any way I can. And I didn't know how much I would be able to. But in order for me to get to the meetings at the time, my twins were only 18 months old. So I had to go, and I had to leave work an hour early, go pick them up from daycare, take them over to my parents' house, drive back to the board meeting. Later, my daughter came along, and in that case, I had to go to two places to get them, drive them around town. This is after, a lot of nights when I didn't sleep all night. I mean, just all the things that go along with being a parent. But I made it to all the meetings, I think, except for one. And I gave them plenty of notice for that. So even just getting to the meeting and staying alert and present was hard unto itself. But then the other thing I remember is that when I joined that board, they issued me a badge for the building. And I thought, oh, that's cool. They're giving us all board members badges, help us feel included. Well, I didn't know that I'd be using that thing once or twice a week, almost to
Wow.
the point where, I needed that to get in the building, and I was in there a lot. So,
Nice.
there was just a lot of work, a lot of effort. And I guess I've learned that, maybe the key to being effective with a lot of these things, if that's why they give you an award, is just to be present. And sometimes that's easier said than done.
Right. I can certainly understand that. And what I appreciate the most about these awards that you have been given is that I'm probably somewhat biased, but at least I believe they gave them to a credible person, someone truly worthy. It just seems that people who get awards are, like, as you were talking about, mediocre, or just maybe they were in the right place at the right time, they knew the right people, but haven't truly done the work. And I can speak for you that you walk the walk, you talk the talk, and you're just amazing.
Well, thank you. I will acknowledge that there are a lot of awards out there that you can buy. If you donate the right amount of money, or you get the right level of sponsorship, there are a lot of those, and I may have some of those. I don't even talk about those too much because that doesn't mean that much to me. Anyone can buy their way into anything.
Right. Agreed.
But, I think it's just a matter, and there's just a couple things, if I could bullet it out. One is to be present. I think people really appreciate when you take the time to show up. And then the second thing is to do what you say you're going to do. No one really cares too much for the people that make promises, but they're not reliable at the end. And I guess another thing that I'm real big on is advocacy. And, we're always having roadblocks put in front of us, but I think the key is to be able to figure out how you're going to go around, under, over, get the bulldozer out if necessary, but not, people appreciate people that go to bat. And, for any given thing, especially with some of the diversity awards, being willing to go to bat and say, hey, I got your back. We're going to do this. I don't care what the rules are. I don't care what so-and-so said. We're going to make it happen. And I think that probably is something that's helpful, but I just try to do my best. I'm not thinking about any of that stuff. It's nice. It's nice to have a token for something that you did, but I don't think about that. I just want to do good work.
Gotcha. That's wonderful. We need more people like that.
Thank you.
Like
we need more people like you. But I know this podcast isn't about you. But we'll throw some things in as we go along.
Sounds good. So, which accomplishments are you most proud of, and why?
Sometimes I'm just proud to be up in the morning, get up out of bed every morning. So. Yeah, that's crazy. I think that things that impact people are what I'm most proud of. So, and I don't maybe have a very specific list, but there have been a few occasions where maybe someone was looking to fill a job, and I was able to maybe make a recommendation of someone that might not have been on that radar, and then they go and get the job and make a big impact. I've had that happen a few times. I think that accomplishments I'm proud of are things that end up putting people in a better position to succeed. And I've had a few of those, and I think that, like I said, awards and checking off the box for all the things that you did on your performance review. I mean, yeah, that's great, but you won't be remembered for that. At your funeral, they won't be talking about, well, you exceeded objectives in
right.
3 different categories. It's going to be about what you did for people. So I guess that's the category that means the most to me.
Nice. So you help others level up, like
that's
this podcast.
The goal. Exactly. No, I like that. That's the goal.
Wonderful. And you do that. You accomplish that for sure. And what are the most beneficial habits that you have attained?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tend to dwell on all my bad habits, which I won't go over right now. But I will say this. There's a couple things that I've kind of been doing over the last couple. I'm very proud. I get up at 4:30 every morning to go to the gym, and I'm with a very loyal group of people that create a wellness community, accountability community. So that is a habit that I'm proud of, and it's certainly not natural because I used to be a night owl, and it's impossible to be a night owl and get up that early in the morning, but I've been sustaining that for, close to 20 years now, so
Wow.
I'm pretty excited about that. I think some of the other habits involve just trying to be present. I think that it can be very exhausting. There's a lot of times that I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm out of gas. I can't do one more thing. Or I go to something that might otherwise be against my better judgment, and I end up coming away, maybe I meet someone or I come away thinking, my God, this person's changed my life, or this experience changed my life. So I think being present is real important. I try to manage my commitments very carefully. So a lot of people rightfully accuse me of not being able to say no. I do have challenges with that, but I definitely ask a lot of questions to understand what the commitment is. And I definitely will say no if I can't keep my commitments. I think keeping my commitments is probably the best habit that I try to have. And part of that is just managing expectations and making sure that I'm not taking on more than I can do. And sometimes I find that I have, and I manage to thread the needle and get it all done. But at the end of the day, I just think managing commitments and doing what you say you're going to do. I did what I said I was going to do, and maybe a little more. That's not bad either.
Right. Very nice. So, early bird, waking up at 4:30 a.m. My mom used to always say, the early bird gets the worm.
Yeah, there's a lot of wildlife out at that hour. I can attest to that.
Yes, for sure. All right. And do you participate in personal and or professional development? And please tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as much as I possibly can, and it's interesting. There's a lot of different tracks that people can take for personal professional development, and there's a limit to how much you're going to be able to advance your career just simply through education or going to this conference, going to that conference. I personally think that community service is probably one of the best ways to get personal and professional development. One, you get a chance to maybe learn about a cause that you might not have known about otherwise. You get a chance to do something about it, and you get to collaborate with other people that have a similar mission to try to make things happen. And I've also found that some of the relationships I've formed through those environments have been indispensable. So that's been one for me. I read as much as I can. Not as much as you, but I try, and I at least read your LinkedIn posts because I get smarter every time I get a chance to interact with you. But I do try to take on as much as I can, although sometimes it's a challenge to keep that up to the level that I want. I love listening to podcasts. That's why I'm so excited to get to do this with you today. Podcasts are a great way to passively take in information maybe while you're doing something else, while you're out walking, or if I'm out riding my bike, or even running, although I've noticed that sometimes I got to have music for some of those things or I start going too slow because I kind of get in alignment with the cadence, so sometimes I need music for that. But there's a lot of times that we can develop ourselves kind of in a passive mode. We can feed our brains information while we're doing something else. So I try to take advantage of that as much as I can. I love YouTube. I love TikTok. I have a secret TikTok addiction. I have learned so many things. It's bizarre. I mean, admittedly, there's a lot of bizarre and unusual things there, but I have learned so much from those little micro snippets
Yes.
of information that we can get. I've come across some great leadership type subjects doing that, so I always enjoy that. And I guess the last thing, as it relates to professional development, I was a trainer for 8 years formally, or that was my job, and ended up managing the department for half of that time. And part of that, we had to design and develop training programs, and there's been so many times that I have gone from not knowing anything to having to design a training program and all the research and all the people that ask questions and being able to answer them, where I've gone from not knowing nothing to maybe in a lot of people's eyes being a subject matter expert. So I use that approach for a lot of other things that I do. But there's a lot of ways. I think it's learning is a ongoing process. I hope that the day that I stop learning will be the last day I'm on this earth. And I think that besides just going to, getting degrees and going to conferences, we're actually recording this right now in the library, and there's so many resources here that we've got to
Yes.
really leverage to their fullest.
Agreed. Agreed. Wonderful. Thank you for that. And do you have a life philosophy? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, so I might. I usually just do things and maybe try not to brand it or market it that much,
Gotcha.
but there probably is one, and mentioned this earlier. Yeah, if it is to be, it's up to me. I think that it's so important for us to not be bound by the limitations that life throws at us to go after things that are important. So, taking some ownership in that respect. And there's the other one. If our minds can conceive it, we can achieve it. I think I first heard that back when I was in college, and I was always motivated by that. So, one of the ways that we can conceive of things is to go out and network. And I can meet someone like Cindy Evans, who's a fountain of information, and learn a ton from her. So I'm very intentional about networking and getting to know people. And I probably learn the most from other people. So I think those two quotes might summarize my philosophy a bit.
Okay, I love those. Two of my favorites for sure. All right. And what would you say to younger Ralph, 14 or 15-year-old Ralph? What would you say? What advice or words of encouragement would you give him?
Now, after I would smack my younger self upside the head a few times, no, I think the biggest thing, and I struggle with this today, just being vulnerable, is I definitely did not know what was possible. And I have had a tendency to limit myself because of not knowing what was possible, or not knowing that A or B is something that I could actually do. That goes back to being able to conceive. It's hard to be what you can't see. And while I was certainly blessed, I had great parents and aunts and uncles that did a lot of amazing things. They all came up. They all were, in their 20s and 30s during the civil rights era, where all of their great accomplishments were limited, to the public sector, like in government type roles. And I didn't know anything about business. I was kind of afraid of it. I actually went to school thinking I might be a doctor or engineer, and I just found out that I wasn't really cut out for that. And it was sort of a desperate move when I ended up changing my major and ended up going into business. And I found out that, man, maybe I'm more up for this than I thought I was. But I would just tell my younger self that there are way more opportunities out there than you think you can accomplish. Don't be limited by that. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try stuff. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I know fear of failure is always, especially for my younger self, I hated to get rejected. I hated to, so you keep that box really small of things that you might want to go after.
Right.
And, I regret a lot of times where I didn't shoot my shot, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I would tell my younger self, I've been talking a lot, but if I were to just kind of boil it down, I'd say, boy, go out and shoot your shot. Go out and do it. Don't be afraid. Don't let someone tell you can't do anything, and don't ever believe that you're not good enough.
I love that. Shoot your shot. And I think a lot of young people, especially, could benefit from those words, from hearing those words for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
you only know what you know.
Yes.
And when you're that age, you don't know anything.
Right.
You don't know anything. I mean, you do know what you see around you, but, being a person of color, going to public schools, I went through desegregation, went through busing and all that, and I was kind of in the before and after to see what that looked like. And the things that were visible, at least, especially up and through high school, were very limited. I just didn't know anything. I didn't know what was possible, and I guess there is another thing that I've learned that would be hard to tell a 14 or 15-year-old, but there's two kinds of things. There's fear of failure, which I definitely understand, and that fear would maybe keep me away from the edge sometimes. But the worst thing is the fear of regret.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I would rather fail than carry regrets, because failure you can overcome. Regrets you take to the grave.
Yes.
So I'd rather be, on the edge, and I've gotten better at that. I could still be better, but that's a sweet spot right there.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. All right, so please tell us more about your work with boards, Leadership Columbus, Weld, et cetera, et
Yeah, well,
cetera.
thank you for asking about that. So I mentioned to you that actually probably because we've never talked about this before, how I kind of got on this track. So for the first 5 years of my career, I only did things that were industry related, like in the insurance industry. And I felt like at some point I maxed it out. I said, I've done everything that I care to do. I felt like I was just running into the same people who were also motivated. But, if you're all in the same industry, people tend to think the same and even
Right.
look the same. So I had made a decision at some point that said, I'm not going to do anything else insurance related. I'm going to just go out and kind of explore the world. And for me, that started with when I was on the Red Cross board, and I also was a member of the Urban League board, which there were a lot of challenges with that, but that turned out to be one of the best things I ever did in my life because of all the people that
Wow.
I met and the relationships that I formed, and even getting to navigate through some challenges and maybe even getting to stand up and practicing if it is to be, a little bit. So currently, as you referenced, I'm a trustee for the Ohio Foundation of Independent Colleges. That is a group that is comprised of college presidents and people from the business community that help support higher ed through private schools. Now, I'm a 100% dyed-in-the-wool public school kid. Always went to public school. Went to Columbus Public Schools, went to Ohio State, and I definitely, just one of the homeboys, I guess. Just that's always been my mindset. So the opportunity to do OFIC was a stretch assignment for me because that's just not a world I ever thought I could be a part of. Never even I didn't think I could be there, so I just sort of dismissed it. But I'm glad I did because I've learned about the opportunities. I've formed some great relationships. And when you're in a group of people where most of them are college presidents, you can't go wrong with that. So I've been doing that for a few years. I also am currently the finance chair and treasurer for the Lincoln Theater.
Nice.
And I bring that one up because, in addition to being a public school kid, I tend to be a little bit more of a sports and meat and potatoes kind of guy, and not the artsy person that I should be if I want to be a true Renaissance man. So I thought, this is a stretch for me. I just don't have the appreciation for the arts that I know I need to have to be a well-rounded person. I just wasn't exposed to a lot of that stuff growing up, and it just kind of evaded me. It just wasn't kind of part of my profile. And when I was given that opportunity, I immediately jumped on it, and I just appreciate so much how much I get to learn and all the programming that they do, and just really come into appreciation that the the people in the arts make the quality of our life so much better, whether it's turning on the TV to watch a movie, whether it be the music we listen to or some of the visual artists and even people that do culinary arts.
Yes.
I do
Agreed.
have a creative side for sure, but I just needed to take a deeper dive into that, and I really appreciate that. And then I can also bring into that some of the sensibilities I have. So I studied finance in college. So as a treasurer, I can bring a lot of those sensibilities, to a group of people that might have a little more of an arts orientation. So I have really, really appreciate that and love the colleagues that I have and the facility. Everything is wonderful. Leadership Columbus, I just joined that board earlier this year, and having been a trainer for 8 years and being such an advocate for professional development, it's really cool to kind of be part of something that helps people get that experience and get those experiences to try to not only make themselves better but make our community better. So I've really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed the people that I work with. And ahead of that, I had a number of volunteer opportunities to help out with some of the programming, so it fit in real well. And then Weld, as we're recording this, I just was officially voted in earlier this week as we record this. But
Very nice.
WELD stands for Women's Economic Leadership Development, and as you know, I'm very passionate about that. I'm passionate about professional development for everyone, but for women, and most especially women of color, there are so many roadblocks, so many restrictions. There isn't enough support, and it makes me mad, to be honest with you. I get upset about it. So it's kind of I've just found myself doing more and more to help support those areas, and have struck up a wonderful relationship with the CEO, and was very surprised to get an invitation to be on the board. So it means a lot as a male ally to be part of that. So I'm really excited about that one, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that can go.
Wonderful. So glad to hear that. And Leadership Columbus and Weld are both near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely,
As
I
being
know
a
that.
member or a graduate from Leadership Columbus. So that is awesome. All right. Do you plan to write a memoir? And if so, what would be a potential title?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I never ever thought that my life was that interesting where anyone would want to spend any time reading about it. But I did have someone approach me once about writing a book. It happened to be a book publisher, and I don't know if I plan to write a book, but I wouldn't say no. I find myself doing a lot of mentoring for folks, and I do get reports back that people appreciate that and it's helpful. And I always say you never know which half of your advertising dollars is working. but
Right.
I just do my best. I realize I've probably had experiences that other folks haven't had, and I miss that. I didn't really have a lot of mentors, so I hit the wall on a lot of things. And when I did have someone that could kind of show me the ropes, it was like the greatest blessing ever. So if I could ever write a book, maybe it would be about how to navigate and just giving people something practical if they don't have someone there right at their side to help lead them through different things. So what would the title be? I don't know. I'd probably have to get your help on that. I'd have to have it be interesting. And of course, if you really want to sell a lot of books, you got to put something scandalous in there so that, people want to buy it or they find it interesting. So I'd have to think about that a little bit.
Okay, wonderful. I love it. What would you like the world to know about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a few things that I wish the world knew that those of us that work in that space understand, either through research or through observation. There is a business case for diversity, equity, inclusion that is so far off the charts that if people fully embrace that, we wouldn't even have debates about if we would be doing it or not. So I'm going to try to, off the top of my head, quote a few stats I believe that Korn Ferry put together, but they're repeated elsewhere. Organizations that are effective in diversity see a 20% increase in retention for their colleagues. When you look at how much it costs to not only acquire talent, but to train them, get them up to speed. You know, when you hire someone brand new, they make a bunch of mistakes their first year. So if you put the cost of all of what it takes to get someone who is a candidate all the way to an employee, and you can save 20% by keeping more of the people that you bring in the first place, that is major dollar. That more than pays for the salaries of the people that are doing that work.
Wow.
That 20% savings. So that's component number one. The second one is one that I think a lot of those of us who are from underrepresented populations understand, but maybe I wish the world would understand is that innovation increases somewhere in the order of 80%.
Wow.
When you have diverse people in the room. And you know, if you ever read those Harvard Business Reviews or some of those case studies and you see companies that make these catastrophic decisions or have catastrophic outcomes, and you start thinking, well, how in the world could they miss it that bad? Well, because they didn't have the right people in the room.
Right.
So 80% increase in innovation, not only to avoid those catastrophic situations, but maybe to come up with a new product or a new way of doing things or meeting a market that's been unmet, is huge. And it's a little harder to put a dollar price tag on that, but it's really, really huge. And I wish the world would understand and embrace that. The third one just has to do with engagement. Engagement doubles. People bring their best selves to work. When people bring their best selves to work, they feel included, involved. They don't leave their, they don't hold on to their best ideas. They share them. They try to put them out there so that people can have an impact. You hold back if you don't feel like you're a part of it, or they're just
Right.
going to acquire your idea and then push you out of the way. I mean, no one
Correct.
wants that, but DE&I can help with that. Additionally, companies that have diverse boards see a 50+% increase in profits over companies or organizations that don't. And that goes back to the same thing. You know, you have people that are looking at the whole picture and the whole world and are making really good decisions that are informed, and they're not going to run an organization, off a cliff. So I guess while I'm on a roll here, the other things that I wish the world knew is that diversity helps everyone.
Yes.
There's a lot of people out there, especially in our current political environment, that are really trying to scare people about diversity. Diversity is not a either or; it's a more proposition.
Yes.
People, without a doubt, it raises everyone up, and with the demographic changes that are occurring, the United States will be majority minority buyer before 2042. Generation Z, which is sort of the generation that's just has been graduating for college over the last couple of years, is already majority minority, and we're facing this regardless. And the people that are out trying to scare and say, well, if someone's going to take my job or take this opportunity, it couldn't be further from the truth. There's going to be more with the general population trends in Ohio, for instance. Back during the 2020 census, the death rate was higher than the birth rate for the first time in recorded history. So when you have numbers like that, there's fewer people to backfill, say, all the baby boomers that are retiring. So we're going to have a shortage. We're not going to be successful if we're not good at this. And there's two things that organizations need. They need customers and they need talent.
Yes.
And if you have a deficit of either, you're probably going to have some challenges. And DE&I can help help with both of those. Sometimes you have to get people, just even if you look back in World War II, when all the men were, shipped off to war, women had opportunities to work in factories and things like they never did before because of necessity. We're going to be in the same situation. If the traditional candidates are the only pool of talent that we have, we're not going to have enough people to do all the things that need to be done.
Right. And that would be so unfortunate.
It will be. I believe that companies that are not performing as well will be that'll be a shortcoming that we'll look at, just like we do at their expenses and revenue and sales. It'll be unfortunate for those that don't get it right. Astute organizations are working very hard on that, and they'll get it right and they'll be successful. And there may be other organizations that we hear about today that we might not hear about in the future. So we'll see. They'll get bought up by the companies that are doing it right.
Right, for sure. And since we're on diversity, equity, and inclusion, what does the future look like in your opinion?
That's a great question. You ask a lot of great questions, by the way.
Well, thank you.
But that's another one that's fantastic. So right now, we're in a political environment that's going to make the short and intermediate term very challenging. There's court decisions that are causing companies to really back off of their commitment, or maybe even give them an excuse not to do certain things. I think that's a reality. We see a lot of our political leaders blaming DE&I and ESG for different things that go wrong with their companies. And for those that don't know, ESG is environmental, social, and governance, which a lot of companies, especially publicly traded companies, have to be accountable for, which is part of their success and health measurement. But a lot of people are, and especially in the political world, are really throwing a lot of cold water on that, and companies are backing off for sure. So short term, a lot of the commitments that we heard back in 2020, we're starting to figure out who was being performative versus those who really truly wanted to make a difference. I think that we're actually in real time learning which side different people who made statements back in 2020 are really falling into. And so I think short term, I see a lot of challenge. I just in short see the pendulum kind of swinging backwards, just to be totally transparent.
Right.
But as I mentioned, given the demographic changes that are happening that have been projected for many, I've been reading about these demographic changes long before I ever got in this space, and they're happening. It's going to make it unavoidable that we step up and address these issues. So the future is going to be, in my opinion, maybe a little harder in the short to intermediate term. Long term, it's going to be essential, and companies that survive are going to be the ones that do that well. The companies that struggle are going to be doing it not so well.
Right. I hope they get it together, to be sure. To be sure.
Absolutely.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee you, for the rest of my working career, and maybe yours too, there's enough to keep us busy in that space. It's going to be around for a while. And I wouldn't have predicted that, say, when I was in college. So I would have thought by now we would have all had that figured out, but I think we've regressed.
Yes, I agree. All right. And my final question for today is, last but not least, what advice do you have to help women of color grow and advance in the workplace and in life?
That's a great question, as they all are. And before I answer, I have to thank you for letting me be a part of this and just asking so many thoughtful questions. I always say Cindy is a fountain of information, and then I remember, she's a librarian by education. So she should be a fountain of information. But I'm so blessed to have you in my circle, and to be able to help me think about things by asking such great questions. So I guess a couple of things of advice that I would have. I think first and foremost, be with the community. You don't have to go through any struggles, any challenges alone. Get with people that have either been through it or gone through it, and work together. And there are so many great organizations to help with that. We talked about Weld for people that are in the corporate space, especially. I think Weld is a little bit more corporate oriented, but I think that's a group where women are supporting other women,
Yes,
providing
I
personal and
agree.
professional development opportunities, and helping people navigate through challenges by putting folks out there who've been through it before. That institutional knowledge and experience. There's a National Association for Women Business Owners, for those who are in business or entrepreneurs, that can help provide support kind of in that focus for those who are entrepreneurs. I send a lot of people to the YWCA for their programming. I've seen the YWCA just create amazing opportunities for people that want to get better, and through the programming that they have, through the support, and again, the community. If you're having a bad day and you have someone that you can reach out to that has been in that place before, that usually is the thing that you need to make a difference. The last one that comes to mind, while there certainly are others, I'm also a huge, huge fan of Zora's House.
Yes.
Zora's House is maybe a little set up more for entrepreneurs, but they definitely have a strong diversity bent within the women that they serve. They definitely are serving underrepresented populations. But the thing that I love about that is it's a place for people to gather that might not have that network, and they provide a co-working space. So sometimes the people that you're around, if you're in an office environment, are the people that are causing you the most challenges as far as navigation. So if you're going to work remotely, work together with folks that have your back, and support you. And it just changes outcomes. So those are the ones that come to mind. I know that there's others, but I've had a chance to see those up close and really admire the work that they do. And then the other part is just network. That's how you and I met. For anyone
Yes.
listening to this, Cindy is a prolific LinkedIn poster, and she got my attention. I had never met her outside of that, and I was so impressed with her content and her insight that I kind of went out of my way to meet her and get to know her, and one of the best things I ever did. So it just comes down to, seeking out people that can support your mission, seeking out people that understand where you're coming from. One of the worst, most frustrating things you could do is try to seek out help from someone that doesn't understand what you're going through. They usually end up making you more upset. After you do that, you end up coming away, even worse than you started off with.
Yes.
So I think networking is inherent in that, because if you just sit alone, you're never going to meet anyone other than just the people that you're forced to deal with. And
Right.
I just been real blessed to be in a position where I could do a lot of networking and meet great people. And I always know someone I can call on if I need something. So I think that helps men and women, but especially some of the special challenges that women of color have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all
This was
this
fun.
wealth of
Can we do this
information and
again?
knowledge. Yes, I would love to. I would absolutely love to. And a final question that I have is there anything that I have not asked you, but that you would like to put out in the atmosphere?
Oh, thank you for that. it's always important for me to be ready for that question, and I would say that your questions are very comprehensive. But I guess what I would just reiterate is do the best to identify people that are setting the example that you want, and try. It's a lot easier. When I was younger, we didn't have social media and things like that where I could reach out to people that I thought, hey, I'm learning something from them. You just had to physically be lucky enough to run into them or what have you. But now we have the ability to connect, unlike any other time, at least in my life and yours too. And I would say, connect with people, try to learn as much as you can from them. And the more that you have people in your life that, I always say, if you're going to build a house, build the cheapest house in the high valued neighborhood, because if you buy the most expensive house, you're going to get less. But if you buy the less expensive house, you're going to ride those values. So surround yourself with people like that. Have people that can hold you accountable. I don't really, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to be the smartest. I want someone else to be the smartest person in the room so I can
Yes.
learn from them. So, always position yourself to be among the very best people you can possibly surround yourself with, and learn from and be inspired by them. So that's probably the only thing that we didn't specifically talk about that comes to mind. But of course, with everything, I'll think of something after we're done.
Right. And also, I just wanted to add one thing to that. I believe it was Warren Buffett. I could be wrong. Someone like that, Napoleon Hill, Zig Ziglar, someone said, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So
Yeah.
that just further solidifies that quote. And I absolutely agree.
Well, in fact, I saw Zig Ziglar speak once. He passed away a few years ago, but I actually saw him speak once. And, he spoke in that Texas, I think he was from Texas or something. He had that inflection in his
Right.
voice, so you couldn't ever forget what he said. But this is random, but he always says, we'll never apologize for our price. We will only apologize for our price once, but we'll never apologize for poor service. And, maybe that's a higher level commentary on just kind of the values that we need to bring to the table, that, we're going to stand for something. We're going to do something meaningful. And we're going to make ourselves high valued by the people that we associate with.
Yes, for sure. Love that. All right. If there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and end this wonderful podcast with the one and only Ralph Smithers Jr.
Thank you, Cindy. It has been a pleasure. I hope that we can do it again sometime.
Yes.
And thank you for the honor of being your first guest.
Thank you so much for coming.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you.